So, you ready? Freedom of speech is an important and controversial topic all around the world. Here in America, while many would argue for absolute freedom of speech, there is really no one who would argue for complete censorship and control of speech, or at least no one you'd like to talk to. Yet, within the spectrum, between either side of the extremes of freedom and control, we find a variety of arguments for and against specific aspects of freedom of speech, such as, can you think of any? And if you do think of them, and I'm like, yes, that's it, you should write it down. So what are some issues of freedom of speech that are controversial right now or pertinent?
Racist remarks.
What does that fall in the category of? Hate speech. Okay, yeah, sure. Write that down. Anything else? That's going to be a big one. About 95% of you are going to write on hate speech. It's going to be different aspects of it, though, probably, because you want to have a narrow topic. As we go, that will fill up a little bit more. Let's take a poll. So, hate speech, is that legal or illegal?
It's legal.
It is legal? Who thinks it's legal? Okay, who thinks it's illegal? Okay, so it's really important for us to understand what is legal and illegal already to begin with when we're writing this essay, because you're going to be arguing what should be legal or illegal, right? Which then comes to, so you are going policy with this a bit, right? Remember fact value policy? I don't need to go there, but that means you're going to have to pull out all these stops for this value argument that leads to policy. You're going to try and stay a lot in the realm of value before the point of policy. Let's talk about this for a second. Got an example here. Roseanne Barr tweeted, Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby, and that is this person, VJ, who is this lady right here, Valerie Jarrett. What would you call this? Is this hate speech? Yeah? Did she get arrested for it? No. Why not? Because it's not illegal. Hate speech is not illegal. What did happen though?
She got fired.
She got fired from a show with her name. Yeah? That show got like super high numbers. It came out, she's pumped, pops a couple Ambien, wakes up at 2 a.m., writes that, and then she's fired the next day. When she wakes up, she's already fired.
She wasn't arrested because the internet is still kind of like new, and we still haven't made laws about it, and it's
Yeah.
still kind of like a subject.
Yeah, we haven't made laws here yet. There are already laws in other countries. Germany passed laws early 2018 on censoring hate speech on the internet. That includes even stuff, so it's Facebook, Twitter, any of those are obligated to censor hate speech in Germany or they get fined. So you can even pull from that stuff to see how that's working for them. By the way, that was her apology. Just a little bit later, she said, "Don't defend me," right? She was still fired. She didn't get her job back. All right, what about this? Is this speech?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do we call this? Symbolic speech or expression. What are they doing? Yeah, is that what you're supposed to do? Like, yeah, there's nothing that says, is there? I don't know, because this is interesting territory here. How about this? We've got Nicki Minaj. All right, so this is what a writer posted on Twitter. She says, "You know how dope it would be if Nicki put out mature content. No silly shit, just reflecting on past relationships, being a boss, hardships, etc. She's touching 40 soon. A new direction is needed." So this is criticism, right? You know what kind of stuff Nicki puts out. What do you think if you could sum up a song or multiple songs, maybe a whole album? What do you think the theme would be? Sex, money. Yeah, how big of a butt she has, how big of a... It's vulgar, whatever you like, right? It's speech. It's speech, isn't it? So this lady is also giving speech in the form of writing. And then Nikki straight up messages her, when your ugly ass was 24, you were pushing 30. I'm 34. I'm touching 40? LOL. And what does that have to do with my music? Eat it. Okay, anyway, so she puts her on blast to all her followers. Nikki does. She says, hey, look at this hoe talking shit. And her followers just go crazy on her. Go die, F yourself, your parents should have aborted you, just all kinds of whatever. Like, as much horrible stuff as you can think, they're all bombarding her with this, yeah? So it's like Nikki straight up like sicks them on him. So the significance of how much power you do have. But what does that do? It depends, right? What do we define as hate speech, really, is the question, yeah?
So I was just going to say, she's only human. Like, yeah, she's famous, which makes it, like, a lot of people see that and they'll hate on her. But if someone tweeted out at me, people are going to, like, if someone did that to anyone, they're going to be like, oh, look at this person talking shit. And they're going to do the same thing.
It's just what?
She has a fan base.
She does have a fan base, though, and so those fans can do stuff depending. They can troll her all day. There's enough of them. She's got like a lot. Anyway, so we're just going to watch a couple minutes of this, maybe 1 minute of it, just to think about how we define this.
What is hate speech? And should the government ban it? We asked college students at the University of Southern California.
If somebody uses a racial slur, that's hate speech? Yeah.
I think that would be a reason to, like a crime.
What if somebody says Muslims shouldn't be allowed into the U.S.?
Yeah, that's hate speech.
What if somebody denies the Holocaust?
No, I don't have any understanding for that. You shouldn't be able to blatantly lie about something, especially like the Holocaust.
A female comedian says men are scum.
I don't believe that's hate speech.
All white people are racist.
No. I would say no.
I don't know.
Yeah, all right, so because that's the thing, right? And I've maybe even said that in class. I know I've said it in other classes. I say men are trash all the time. Or what if a woman says men are trash, but what if a guy says women are trash? Are they the same or are they different?
If a man is talking trash about other men, we probably wouldn't see it as hate speech because, hey, he's a man, so he wouldn't offend himself.
Yeah. See, this is the problem. Like, it gets a little complicated when the definition of hate speech is dependent on the individual. We're constantly trying to fight this, right? People are constantly trying to make things illegal. Should the government prevent hate speech? These are polls taken. You can look at polls, find them yourselves, right? The Gallup polls, Cato Institute, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff out there that you can find. But the problem is, while people think the government should prevent hate speech, or don't think that the government should prevent it, there's also hate speech is morally unacceptable. So what do you do with it, right? These numbers are from the same people being taken, and you're getting... Like, what's the issue here then? If you are against hate speech, right, you are going to be arguing something here. Like, you're arguing the legality of it. Should it be illegal? And so far, it's not illegal. Maybe you think it should be illegal. There are definitely people in here. You're going to have to pick from articles. We've got a list of the articles here, and it was hard to define them as for or against. It would be confusing, like for free speech or for censorship. So what I did was I color coded them in the sense of so green is like go, right, like just freedom, do whatever, and then red is stop, don't do it. Yeah, does that make sense? So I put readings that have a side up here, and there's the red and green ones, and then yellow would be neutral, where they try not to take a side. So what you're going to end up having to do here is, I'll just read this part. It's important to know and understand, so right after the blank space there, to understand these different issues and their arguments, to really know where we should stand ourselves. In this essay, your job is to take a decisive stance on a specific and controversial freedom of speech issue while accurately representing both sides of the argument. So this is opposing viewpoint, right? In order to do this properly, you must adhere to the following requirements. So you need to take a stance against a unified argument found in one of the opinionated sources. It depends on what side you're on. If you're for keeping free speech how it is, you would be fighting or arguing with against one of the red articles. And if you are for censorship, then you would be making your arguments directly related to what is found in a green article. Does that make sense?
Can you say it again?
Depending on what stance you have, if you are for keeping free speech the way it is, then you're going to be arguing against something found in one of the red articles. And if you are for censorship, then you are arguing against what's found in the green articles. Or one of them is the whole point here. And the reason why I'm doing this, I've switched it up a little bit because students really struggle with finding a fixed argument. I've had students argue stuff that isn't even an issue at all. Like they don't even understand the law. So that's what we're going to talk about first, is figuring out, like, making sure you guys understand the law. Because otherwise, if you're arguing something that's not being argued by anyone, then what is the point at all? So you want to find the issue that is actually controversial, that is in debate, which will be in here, but a lot of times people just want to quote the easy argument. See, the thing is, you don't want to do a straw man. You want to argue against the best arguments from the opposite side. Here's a detailed list of how it should go down. You can read over that later. Just make sure that you're doing all of this. Like, make sure you're representing the opposition accurately. You're using their best arguments to fight against. If you're fighting against something that, like, no one would fight against, why? You're just wasting your time. So we'll talk about that too. Then there's, of course, the list of articles. Now, this is the thing. If you look on the homework assignments, you'll notice that not all these articles are on there. I'm not requiring you to read them, but I figure the more good stuff that I give you, there's a lot of, like, bad articles that I've gone through where I'm like, I can't even understand what they're saying. Or, wow, this is so bad. There might be a couple in here that kind of don't have, well, that's the thing. You'll see, if they're not all necessarily good arguments just because I put them in here, they might be a common argument people use all the time. So be thinking about that. Understand which ones that you're required to read. Understand that the more you read, probably the better, because the more you can work with. Do whatever you need. Go watch YouTube videos. Look for stuff that will help you understand law and arguments that can help in your favor. Let's talk about a couple more things. We got that. What's that? Burning the flag. Is that legal?
Yeah.
It is. It's legal. Texas tried to make it illegal. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. Why is it legal?
Protected under free speech.
It's protected, but why is it protected? Isn't this hate speech? If you go to Texas, they would say it's hate speech. Not everyone in Texas, but more people than here. Why is this legal?
The right to protest.
The right to protest, right? We talked about that. So what are you saying when you do this? Remember, this is speech. So what are you saying?
You're disagreeing with something.
You're disagreeing with what's going on, right? Does it mean you don't respect it? In a way. But by using this, and what they came out with in the court case is, by using the American flag as the symbol, you are acknowledging that it's a venerated symbol. By burning it, why would you burn something that no one cares about? That's not going to be effective. Why would you kneel if no one gave a crap? That you are actually doing that is acknowledging that it's a big deal, that it is something that is venerated, that this is an important symbol, and I'm now defiling it or desecrating it in a way where it's a powerful statement of, I disagree with something that's going on. There's something that's wrong. That's why they kept it. I think the court case was in 1991, well before you were all born. What about that one? Is that hate speech? Oh, is that different?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, right? What does it even stand for? Was this ever even our flag? This wasn't even the Confederate flag like everyone thinks it was. It was like a specific flag. So I don't know. It depends, right? You think about it, but you're doing the same thing. It's for the same purpose. You are not happy with something that people make it stand for. So burning a flag is legal. What about that? Is this legal or illegal? Legal? All right, so this, you think that leads to this? It's Madonna dancing in front of burning crosses. Do you think it leads to this, or do you think it leads to this? So, where do you burn a cross? In front of someone's home. Because it's a message. What kind of message is it?
You don't belong.
You don't belong here. Anything else? You could be like, oh, that's nice, I disagree. Is there anything else behind it?
You're gonna die?
Yeah. If you stay, you're gonna die. Is this even necessary? The noose? No. It's all in this. Where you do that, you are telling them, if you don't leave, we're going to do this to your house. Or then we're going to do this to your body. If you don't leave. That's what this means. So it's a what? Threat? It's a threat. It's a true threat. How about this one? Has anyone ever heard of fighting words?
Mm-hmm.
What are fighting words?
Like words that provoke you enough to hate you.
Yeah. Provoke you to violence. Okay, so let's talk about that. First of all, here's the thing on hate speech. So Justice Samuel Alito. So when someone's a justice, even if you don't like them, they probably know the law better than you, or better than almost anyone. Anyway, this is what this guy said. The definition of hate speech from him was speech that demeans on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, age, disability, or any other similar ground. These things are hateful. Sound like it pretty much covers it? Yeah, so we get homophobic stuff or sexist stuff, but then when we say men are trash or all white people are racist, well, is that gender? Is that race? It gets complicated. The arguments then arise as to, well, are all people equal? All people are equal in the sense of they should be equal, yes? But are all people equal in the sense of how they have to go through life? Do some people have more obstacles than others? Yeah, so maybe there's an argument there. You can be for censorship or for free speech with this essay. Once again, I'm not telling you where I stand on it, but I am trying to represent, when I talk to you guys, I want to represent all the arguments, all the sides. So if you guys bring up anything, we can talk about how well that stands up. I'm not telling you where I stand because it doesn't matter. I've had students write essays on things that I agree with, and because their arguments were weak, they got really bad grades on it. And then there's students that I totally disagree with, but their arguments were built well and they got A's. Like, it has nothing to do with what I believe on this. It has everything to do with how well you argue it. Does that make sense? Okay. It's important to know what's illegal or illegal. So these are things that are already illegal. Obscenity, fighting words, defamation, including libel and slander. Do you guys get the difference? One's spoken, one's written. Yeah. So defamation, what is that?
Like ruining somebody's character.
You are ruining their character, which could get them fired.
Blacklisted.
Yeah, you get blacklisted. There's all kinds of things that can happen from that. It will affect you economically, which is one of the arguments for racism now. Perjury. So you're lying on the stand because that can also affect someone else. Like, even if you're trying to fight for yourself to be off the hook for something and you lie about it, there's someone else that gets on the hook, right? There's so many implications of all this stuff. Blackmail, obviously. Incitement to imminent lawless action. True threats. When we say true threats, it's like someone says, "Man, I'll kill you." Do you believe them when they say it like that? No. If they have a face tattoo and they're holding a knife, do they have to have face tattoos anymore? I don't think that's profiling. So if they have a knife in their hand and they're like, I don't know, foaming at the mouth, and they're walking towards you and they're like, I'm gonna kill you. That's also brandishing a weapon, and so now we're like complicating it, or we're adding other elements to it, right? You can get in trouble for brandishing a weapon. If you're just holding a knife and you're sharpening it, that's not brandishing a weapon, right? But then if you're holding it at someone, you're brandishing a weapon. So there's different ways, but it's very difficult to prove intent. In rap songs, this happens a lot. Even Tupac, in Hit 'Em Up, he's gonna make sure all your kids don't grow. All kinds of stuff, right? But what qualifies it as a true threat? There's songs where this guy, who's not a real rapper, his name's Tone Dougie, he was just going on Facebook and putting up lyrics, but they were very clear, specific lyrics about how he was going to murder his wife that he's getting a divorce from. And it all got taken to court, and it even got thrown out. So there's stuff like that. What about holding up banners at a homosexual soldier's funeral? The signs say, God hates fags, and you're going to hell, and stuff like that. Is that illegal? No, it's not. There is something that's illegal, though. Where are you standing? Yes, are you standing on private property? And this is what the courts decided. When we talk about fighting words, that's not even fighting words. When it says God hates fags on their banner, at something like that, can you think of anything that would be more of fighting words when you are already like on edge because your child died and someone's holding up a banner like that? Like, they're talking to you. That's not even considered fighting words. So fighting words, how do you define these things? So if I'm in public, sorry, not me, let's not give you images like that. I went to Cal State Fullerton. I was constantly getting emails from campus security about how there was a flasher that was walking around flashing. That is legal or illegal? It's illegal. If someone screen prints a t-shirt with their junk, like a woman, she prints her boobs on the front. See, it's got to be a man. I feel like this is better if it's a man. If a man does, or a woman, whatever, yeah, they put their junk on their shirt and then they go around and they show that. Or they're just walking around with it open. Is it legal or illegal?
Depends upon the private or public property.
Depends where you are. See, this is the thing. Do you feel like you're in danger when someone's legit exposing themselves? Yeah, you should. Like, there's only one more step left, right? But if it's on a shirt, is there like imminent danger? No, they're just kind of a piece of shit because your kid's right there. And that's where this comes into place. So we've got this other thing that you need to understand. This is what the court justices have to take into account when we're talking about obscenity. Content neutral, time, place, and manner. So TMP. Time, place, manner. Think about it. If you live in a neighborhood where people have a lot of parties, when can you call the cops? Can you call the cops? Huh? When? At 10? Some neighborhoods it's 10. Some neighborhoods it's 11. Some, where there's just a whole bunch of old white people, it's 9. I hear these things. I don't have any white people where I live. There's ordinances and stuff like that in play depending on where you are, if you're in a residential area or not. There's also places where you can have a march, right? Have you ever seen cops try to enforce areas for marches and people are getting pissed off because they say they have the right to march and they have the right to free speech, but they're actually causing traffic jams in places where they didn't get a permit for the march and stuff like that? In order to have order, you kind of need to do things in a way that it's not going to do more than what you're trying to do with it. Are you trying to get people to hear you, or are you trying to just screw with them? A city can also be like totally messed up and put the places, so this is the thing, they can't censor what you can say, but they can censor where you can say it. That comes down to state and even county and city laws. There's cities where blowjobs are illegal in America, somewhere. My question is, how do you know? Like, how do you enforce that, right? So there's all kinds of stuff going on. you do understand why this is beneficial, but it is kind of weird, and people can infringe on it. And if any city has laws, like guess what? My city still has on the books, women have to all wear dresses. So if someone went and like took that to court and took it all the way to the Supreme Court, they could get it thrown out. They would probably just be like, oh shit, that's still on the books, and they'd probably get rid of it so they don't look bad. But see what I'm talking about here? Like, things can be law, just like smoking weed is legal now in certain states, but federally not. But then it's not enough, it's not worth it to go and take it all the way up. So your job is going to be finding something like fighting words. If you're going to say these are fighting words, then you'd have to say, okay, how do you justify making that illegal because, well, we'll see.